we'll move on. I think we want to get into sort of the takeaways now, and the first one we've got on our list is the very apparent. This hasn't really happened before, but the obviously pro-unionist people tactically voting in constituencies and also on the list to a certain degree as well, in marginal seats. That's something that's new. On one side, you say the SNP managed to get one seat away from an absolute majority in a system designed to prevent one, with lots of tactical voting. And at the same time, you say, actually, probably Lib Dem voters voting for Tories in Aberdeenshire West probably was the reason the SNP didn't get a majority, or maybe Tory voters voting for Labour in Dumbarton. Either one of those, both you had considerable tactical voting. Either one of those would flip, and the SNP would have had a majority. So unionist voting definitely had an impact. And fair play, it's a democracy. If that's what you want to do, you do it. But I think, and I'll let you say your piece in a minute, but for me, what riled me up a bit on that is at the UK level, I'm told constantly by Labour voters and Lib Dem voters that the Tories are Satan. And then in Scotland, a certain percentage of them will merrily go vote for a Tory. And it's like, well, I can't give you any credibility if on the UK level you're telling me I would never work with a Tory, and then on the Scottish level you're literally voting them into rather than voting for a centre left or left wing party. That's a real sticking point for me. I can't fundamentally. I understand the union independence issue is the crux of the matter there, but if you're telling me, and I don't necessarily agree, I've got friends that vote Tory, would I prefer maybe they didn't? Yeah, sure, but that's life, isn't it? And you don't agree on everything. But to have, especially Labour people, Lib Dems, fair enough, but Labour people saying, at the UK level, we can't possibly work with you, I would never vote Tory, and then merrily lining up to do that.
Selling themselves out and selling the people out who vote for them, as far as I'm concerned, on that matter.
So anyway, that's just a bugbear of mine. What was there anything on the unionist sort of tactical voting that you wanted to?
No, I just think this is absolutely exemplified. This last thing we were talking about by George Galloway. I will never stand next to a Tory. I'll never stand next to a Tory, and then he's campaigning with one.
Yeah, you're right. I will die on this hill, and then you'll go die on the exact opposite hill. And on the unionist tactical voting front, I don't know if there's anything extra you wanna mention. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's happening. I think people realise the end game's coming now on this. It's I mean, an independence referendum. I mean, tactical voting didn't work in the end. There's a pro-Indy majority in Parliament. We're a parliamentary democracy. That's how it works. There will be a second independence referendum. It's just a matter of when. But what you did see is a certain amount of obviously tactical voting to try and prevent that majority. But it didn't work.
No, definitely. And what I find funny about this is, as soon as independence now is becoming a big issue and things, Gordon Brown is now wheeled back out.
Comes out of the woodwork. Oh my God.
Making all these arguments for federalism, the same arguments he was making in 2014.
Yeah.
And it was like, you don't realise, but the way this is a broken record of you making the same arguments and absolutely nothing having changed going in that direction is maybe a huge argument towards independence, because you're making these arguments, but in the 8 years, or you've set 7 years now, since it happens, there's been absolutely no inch closer to
this is the
federalist Britain that you're advertising. You're advertising something that does not exist, and under a Westminster system doesn't look like it. There's even why would Westminster even grant it?
No, so exactly.
You're making stupid arguments and just wheeled out to bring up these fantasy situations which will never. And they're never going to happen. And I haven't voted SNP, not a member of the SNP, nothing like that, right? But but they say that the SNP are the delusional ones making all these fantasy situations up. It's like, come on.
This is the thing. I mean, the thing he's talking about as part of the sort of stay in the UK campaign, Scotland was promised federalism max. Yeah. They have not honoured a single promise that was made as part of that referendum campaign. They have not done one thing that they promised. So to then turn around and say, no, this time we'll make sure you get it. It's like, well, sorry, you burnt your bridges. David Cameron and Brown came out and said, you will have federalism to the tits. Nope, none of it happened. None of it. Zero. So it's like
David Cameron, Alistair Darling, Gordon Brown, all of those were giving these arguments, and absolutely nothing has happened. What do you want? Another 7 years? Another 70 years? Like how like this is no way to treat 5 million people.
Exactly.
No way to treat
and if the UK was making good on those promises and doing everything to actually give more devolution to Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland and empowering the equal nations in the UK. It's a union of equals. That's literally what's written on the freaking piece of paper that forms the union and the UK. It's a union of equals, and you're being told, well, actually, we're not going to honour any of our promises, but we'll keep promising them again, even though the electorate pretty much knows that we have no interest in actually doing any of that. And we're just going to rely on the fact that hopefully we can whip up a cultural war around this too, and put it off for a bit. But like we said a little while ago, it's gravity. It's going to happen eventually. And wheeling out Gordon Brown, who literally has no credibility in Scotland left anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
People see right through that. Labour don't even like him anymore. It's like, it's like, all right, buddy, sure.
Which comes across as disingenuous now, because like I said, we're no inch closer to what he's claimed.
Exactly. It's like Tony Blair coming out in the last couple of weeks and saying how the Labour Party needs to be saved. It's like, dude, the Labour Party, the political landscape's shifted since you won your elections. Like, you wouldn't win anymore. You just wouldn't. So you've got like Andrew Adonis saying, oh, it's time for Blair now. These people they're living in a fantasy land. They're living in a fantasy land about Scotland, and they're living in a fantasy land about a lot of other things as well. And you're seeing it where they're trying to give either sort of early 20-teens arguments now that we're in the 2020s, or in some cases making like 90s arguments. It's 90s like
argument. Just forgetting that they were able to sustain that their power through surpluses created by the technology booms in the 90s and all of that. Just that's like a 1997 argument. So we've had two life-changing a crash and now
COVID. It's a completely different world. We're living in a completely different world, and they can't adjust their brains to that.
Exactly.
And,
we still try and act like it's 1997.
Yeah. Or 2014, and even And 2014 was weird because we weren't actually even out of the financial crisis. We're still not. This was the thing. We're not out of the 2008 financial crisis. We've lost a decade, and then we got hit by COVID. We're not in this world that the Tories and some of these Labour grandees seem to think we're operating in. You've got people talking about austerity again. It's like, well, that's going to destroy the union even quicker. It's like no one's got an appetite for the stuff that you guys are offering. If you can make a positive case, then people will listen. But if all you're saying is no and serving up ideas that you either lied about in the past and it's proven you did, or are completely extinct on an intellectual and political level, and you're trying to like resuscitate them desperately, it's not going to work. And I'm shocked that Gordon Brown's an intelligent guy. I don't understand how he can go on TV and with a straight face say the things he's saying. Same as Tony Blair. I'm like, I don't understand how you guys can be saying these things. You know better. I know you know better, and yet you're still doing it. So there's obviously maybe it's ideology. I don't know, but there's some sort of mental block there that they just can't. They can't see reality for what it is.
Definitely.
And I think there's going to be a lot of. I don't think Keir Starmer can see reality what it is, because I think he pines for the 90s. I think he wants to go back to that Blairite world, and that doesn't exist.
And especially when his shadow cabinet and everything seems to be more right wing economically than Boris Johnson is right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They'd be more fiscally conservative than they are. Making arguments against nurses getting pay increases and spending and raising the tax rate. It's like, wait, aren't you supposed to be for these things? But anyway, I know we're getting a bit sidetracked.
No, yeah. So, I think that's a summary of unions tactical voting. Like I say, it didn't have a huge impact, but it did have an impact, and it's something to obviously note.